We are team Roots to Roots. Our theme was agriculture, in which we interacted with farmers and also visited a few allied industries and markets.
In Rajkot, we visited village Kagdadi for cotton cultivation. However, it was yet to start after the rains. It is dry area and irrigation was only through wells and rainwater, but we saw sprouts, maize, till and other crops, and dragon fruits and ladyfinger. The farmers were helpful and also served us tea and water in the fields. Two agro industries which were cleaning centers were there in the village. In Surendranagar, the fields were 25 kilometers away and there was no transport facility to return. So we went to the agro market and interviewed seed dealers and learned about the variety of cotton seeds and fertilizers. He also explained about the cotton cultivation process. In Surat, we visited our friend's family's textile factory. We saw the jacquards and wrapper technology in the looms. We learned how the design is made by splitting into the warp and weft component and also how the price of cloth is calculated. We learned how the weaving technology has evolved and we could relate to it when we saw handloom.
We could not get a direct ticket and so went to Ratnagiri via Mumbai and spent one day sightseeing. We paid a heavy fine for accidentally boarding the wrong compartment of the local train. Also, we realized that we could only explore meaningfully if we took a cloakroom or room, even if it was for a day.
पढ़ने पे फल थोड़ा बड़ा कम आता है।
In Ratnagiri, we learnt about the varieties of mangoes and factors affecting their growth. We also visited the Bhatye village and interacted with the locals. They guided us to visit the ICAR research station where we learnt about the different varieties of coconut plants. In the disease management center, we learnt about the different diseases on a coconut plant and also the different applications of engineering possible in the coconut industry. Also, the scientist explained his research on increasing pollination using bees. Since everything was at a walking distance, we were at ease and after the day's work, we would relax at the beach.
In Kerala, we stayed in Angadipuram village. In the Krishi Vigyan Kendra, there the officers were very helpful and explained to us the different varieties of rice, the entire process and timeline of rice cultivation. Also, how the limited land is utilized and water is conserved despite of the slopy landscape.
That one Padashagaram almost we are having 12 Padashagaram in Sangadi.
We then visited the Polankot rubber estate, saw how the tapping is done and its timeline, and the tapper briefed us about the processing of sap into rubber. We spent the last day sightseeing in Kochi and Ernakulam.
We went there for visiting peanut farms, but very few farmers had started it then. But we saw cultivation of leafy vegetables, bitter gourd, pomegranates. We met a family who used to weave earlier but now only sell silk saris. In Vinukonda, which is famous for tobacco cultivation, we went to the ITC office. However, we were not allowed to capture anything. The officers explained us the entire process from planting the saplings to cutting the leaves and curing them. They are sold according to color grading. We met some tobacco farmers at the office itself. In Guntur, we visited the chili yard, godown, and cold storage, then lamb farms and the lamb village, where we went to farmers' houses and learned that chili cultivation was much trickier. It has many risks and needed planning. We found on the net that there are some oilseed refineries in Nandyal. However, none of them existed. We went to Galvi Oil Refinery, but they too had shut down the refinery and were only trading oil now. However, we saw their storage unit and visited some seed shops to learn about the different varieties of rice. We met another group in Vizag and went to Araku Valley, which is famous for coffee plantations. The tribal women there wear septembering. We saw paddy crop being cut and threshed by running an auto rickshaw over it. The harvesting season of this area was different from the others. We went to Purna market, which is a century old mandi.
We visited the fields near Bhubaneswar where we saw brinjal, bitter gourd, parmal, cucumber and mangoes. We learned how much time each crop take to grow and how much time they bear fruits. The major difficulty they are facing is irrigation. They completely depend on the rainfall for irrigation because canals are dry. We saw that they were picking out the seeds from the cucumber for next growing season.
We went to New Jalpaiguri via Kolkata, and in a village called Mainaguri, we learned about jute cultivation and that the yield has reduced in the recent years. A farmer shared that he was under debt because his jute crops had not grown due to less rainfall. We went to the Dagapur tea estate in Siliguri but could not get permission inside the factory. But we roamed in the tea gardens and learned about tea cultivation from the workers plucking the leaves. We had to cross a river to reach the factory. It was a very different experience in Darjeeling because one of us got admitted in the hospital, and while another member stayed with him, one person went to visit the Happy Valley tea estate. However, since it was a Sunday, there were no workers in the estate.
In Sacred Forest, we saw a variety of medicinal plants there. In a village near Shillong Peak, we saw potato muli cultivation using terrace farming. Their main source of irrigation is rainfall. Our taxi driver helped in translating at village as everyone there spoke Khasi. The river district is major agriculture belt because it is situated near the valley and has warmer climate. It is famous for cultivation of pineapple, rice, palm and horticulture.
We included Varanasi and Lucknow because they are culturally very rich and we covered agriculture too. There were large maize fields in PHU and the mangoes from the trees there were sold by many fruit sellers. We met Banarsi silk sari weavers who work in frugal places. We learnt about their work and problems. We saw the Ganga Aarti and stayed in narrow lanes to get a true experience of Banaras culture. The main activity center is near the Ghats. In Lucknow, we went to Malihabad where there are more than 300 varieties of mangoes. New things we learned from the farmers there were the work that they did during the non-flowering season in the orchards and that they need to apply pesticides on the wound formed after plucking mangoes. We saw the chikankari embroidery and learnt about the various types of stitches. A process of chapai happens to block print the designs before embroidery.
In Rishikesh, we interacted with the owner of an organic farm. The lentils like gahat dal and rajma are majorly grown. Ragi, locally called mandua, is also grown. The regions around Rishikesh have become very cosmopolitan and agriculture has reduced. In Roorkee, we went to the Khanjarpur village near IIT Roorkee and first visited a cattle shed where bajra was being shredded for fodder. Then we learned about the harvesting cycle, growing and cutting process for sugarcane from three farmers. They were also growing jowar and bajra. The land there was very fertile and groundwater was abundant as it was near the river.
और आप कह रहे हैं खेती करने वाले उस तरफ में मिलेंगे कब्रिस्तान के दाएं मुड़ना है